For over 30 years, we have been told a specific story about the destruction of Planet Vegeta. It is a story that every Dragon Ball fan knows by heart. We were told that Frieza, the Emperor of the Universe, looked at the Saiyan race and felt fear. We were told that he believed in a legend, a Super Saiyan, a golden warrior that would rise up and dethrone him. And so, to prevent this prophecy from coming true, he destroyed them all. But what if I told you that this story is a lie? What if I told you that Frieza, a mutant born with a power level of 120 million, never actually cared about the Super Saiyan legend at all? Think about it logically for a second. At this point in the timeline, the strongest Saiyan alive was King Vegeta. His power level was barely over 10,000. Frieza, in his weakest, most suppressed form, sat at 530,000. That is a gap so massive that it isn't even a fight. It is an execution. For Frieza to fear the Saiyans would be like a human being fearing a colony of ants. Sure, the ants can bite, they can be annoying. But you don't burn down your entire house because you are afraid the ants might one day learn how to use a machine gun. You burn it down because you want to. So why did he do it? Why did Frieza, a being of pure ego and arrogance, feel the need to wipe out his most effective workforce? Why was he sweating in his hover chair as he looked out at the Saiyan army? The answer lies with one man, a low-class warrior who should have been statistically irrelevant, a man named Bardock. Today, we are going to expose the true psychology behind the genocide of the Saiyans. We are going to prove that Frieza didn't fear a power level. He didn't fear a transformation. He feared a concept. He feared a curse of foresight that he himself was suffering from, and we are going to look at the final moments of Bardock's life to show you that Frieza didn't kill him because he was strong. He killed him because Bardock was the only person in the universe who looked Frieza in the eye and saw his death. This is the true story of Frieza's nightmare. To understand why the official story doesn't make sense, we have to look at the math. Dragon Ball is a series defined by numbers, and the numbers here paint a very specific picture of the Frieza Force Empire. Let's look at the assets. Frieza controlled 70% of the known universe. He had the Ginyu Force, his elite squadron. Captain Ginyu alone had a power level of 120,000. That means Ginyu alone could have soloed the entire Saiyan race. Recoome, Berter, Jace, each of them could have landed on Planet Vegeta and wiped it out before lunch. Then you have Frieza's personal guards, Zarbon and Dodoria, both sitting comfortably above 20,000. Again, double the strength of King Vegeta. And then you have the Saiyans, the warrior race. We hype them up because we love Goku and Vegeta, but let's be objective. The average Saiyan warrior had a power level between 1,000 and 3,000. They were grunts. They were shock troopers sent to clear out weak planets. They were not an elite force. They were cannon fodder. Frieza is a businessman. He runs a planet brokerage empire. You do not destroy your best equipment unless that equipment becomes a liability. And physically, the Saiyans were not a liability. They were obedient, they loved fighting, they were making Frieza rich. So the theory that Frieza feared a military uprising is impossible. If the Saiyans rebelled, Frieza wouldn't even have to leave his chair. He could just open the airlock and let them suffocate, or he could send Dodoria to do some cardio. This means the threat wasn't physical, it was metaphysical. In the Dragon Ball Z, Bardock, the father of Goku special, we get a crucial piece of lore that often gets overlooked. The Kanassan War. Bardock and his team are sent to conquer planet Kanassa. The Kanassans are not physically strong, but they possess a unique ability. They can see the future. They have precognition. When Bardock crushes the last Kanassan warrior, the alien doesn't beg for mercy. He strikes Bardock with a phantom fist to the back of the neck. He curses him. He tells Bardock, "I will give you the gift of foresight. You will see the horror of your end just as we saw ours." This is the turning point. But here is the theory that changes everything. What if Bardock wasn't the only one with this curse? We know Frieza has a network of seers and oracles. We see in Dragon Ball Super that he consults with the Oracle Fish and others. It is highly probable that Frieza received a prophecy of his own. But unlike Bardock, who saw clear visions of his son, Frieza likely saw a blur. A vague, terrifying image of a monkey standing over his dying body. Frieza is a narcissist. A narcissist requires absolute control. The idea that there was a future he couldn't control drove him insane. He began to look at every Saiyan not as a soldier, but as a potential assassin. He didn't know who it was. Was it King Vegeta? Was it the young Prince Vegeta? Was it Nappa? He became paranoid. This is why he recalled all the Saiyans to Planet Vegeta. It wasn't a tactical maneuver. It was a panic move. He wanted them all in one place so he could squash the variable. He was trying to cheat fate. Now we have to address the elephant in the room. We have two versions of Bardock. We have the Toei Bardock from the 90s special, and we have the Toriyama Bardock from Dragon Ball Super, Broly, and the Granola arc. Critics often argue about which one is better. People say the Z Bardock is a badass warrior, while the Super Bardock is a soft, Superman-like father. But for this theory, both versions actually lead to the exact same conclusion about Frieza's fear. Let's look at Z Bardock first. He is a savage, he doesn't care about his kids, he barely remembers Kakarot was born, he only cares about revenge. When he gets the visions, he doesn't try to save Goku out of love. He tries to rally the Saiyans to save his own pride. He dies laughing because he sees Kakarot avenging him. In this version, Frieza fears Bardock because Bardock represents the rebellion. Bardock is the first Saiyan to break the programming. He wears the blood-soaked bandana of his fallen comrades. He fights through hundreds of soldiers alone. He is the physical manifestation of Saiyan pride. Now look at Super Bardock. This version is more intelligent. He is a scientist of war. He suspects Frieza's betrayal not because of magic visions, but because of intuition. He sees the ships hovering. He notices the scouters asking strange questions. He deduces the genocide. In this version, Frieza fears Bardock for a different reason. He fears him because Bardock is smart. King Vegeta was arrogant. He thought his title protected him. The other Saiyans were stupid. They thought Frieza was their benevolent boss. Bardock was the only one who saw the strings. In the Granola arc of the manga, we see Bardock make a wish on the Dragon Balls of planet Cereal. He wishes for his sons to thrive. This adds a layer of mystical protection to Goku and Raditz. But it also shows that Bardock possessed something Frieza lacked: humanity. Frieza cannot understand love. He cannot understand sacrifice. When he looks at the Saiyans, he sees tools. When he looks at Bardock, he sees a glitch in the system. A tool that has started to think for itself. Whether it's the Z version engaging in a suicide charge or the Super version launching a final desperation blast, the core threat is the same. Bardock is the will of D of the Dragon Ball universe. He is the storm that brings the change. To truly understand the nightmare, we have to psychoanalyze Frieza. We often think of Frieza as cool and collected, but watch the Namek saga again. Watch the Broly movie again. Underneath that polite, sophisticated voice, Frieza is a coward. He relies on transformations to suppress his power because he can't control it. He relies on henchmen to do his dirty work because he hates getting his hands dirty. He seeks immortality not because he wants to rule forever, but because he is terrified of death. When Bardock launches his rebellion, he triggers Frieza's deepest insecurity. Imagine the scene. Frieza is sitting in his ship, drinking wine, waiting for the fireworks. Suddenly, on the scanners, a single dot approaches. It's one man, breaking through the atmosphere, flying straight at the mothership. The Frieza Force soldiers panic. They swarm him, hundreds of them. Bardock tears through them like wet paper. Now, Frieza could have ignored this. A power level of 10,000 against a ship full of elites is nothing, but Frieza personally steps out of the ship. He floats up in his hoverpod to face this one low-class grunt. Why? Why give him the dignity of an audience? Because Frieza needed to see it. He needed to look into the eyes of the prophecy. He needed to prove to himself that this savior was just a monkey. He needed to validate his own superiority. This is where the theory of the smile comes in. In the final moments, Bardock is battered. His armor is cracked. He is bleeding from every pore. He charges a Kai blast in his hand, the final spirit cannon. It is a tiny blue ball of energy compared to the massive supernova Frieza is creating with his finger. It is futile. It is hopeless. But Bardock isn't crying, he isn't begging. In the Z special, right before the supernova hits him, Bardock has one final vision. He sees Kakarot. He sees his son grown up standing on Namek facing Frieza. He sees the future victory. And Bardock smiles. That smile is what Frieza feared. Frieza wanted fear. He wanted Bardock to scream, to plead, to apologize. Instead, Bardock died mocking him. That smile planted a seed of doubt in Frieza's mind that would grow for 20 years. It is the reason why, when he sees Goku on Namek, he instantly recognizes the face. He says, "You look just like that Saiyan who resisted until the end." He remembered him. Frieza has killed billions of people. He destroyed thousands of planets. He shouldn't remember the face of one random soldier from 2 decades ago. But he does. He remembers Bardock because Bardock was the only one who won the psychological battle. The tragedy of this story is that Bardock never got to see if his vision was real. He died on faith. But the curse of Foresight didn't end with him. It passed on to Frieza in a way. After killing Bardock and destroying Planet Vegeta, Frieza should have been at peace. The threat was gone. The Saiyans were dust. But look at his actions regarding Prince Vegeta. He kept Vegeta alive. He kept Nappa and Raditz alive. Why, if he feared the Super Saiyan, why leave the strongest bloodline, the royal family, intact? It's because Frieza wanted to keep his enemies close. He wanted to monitor them. He wanted to make sure that if the Super Saiyan ever did appear, it would be under his watch where he could crush it immediately. This backfired spectacularly. By keeping Vegeta alive, he hardened him. He turned Vegeta into a monster of pure determination. By letting Raditz live, he set in motion the events that would bring Goku's heritage to light. Frieza created his own destroyer. This is the classic Greek tragedy structure. Oedipus tries to avoid his fate and runs right into it. Frieza tries to destroy the Saiyans to prevent his death. And by doing so, he ensures that the one Saiyan capable of killing him is sent to Earth, where he can train in peace, learn martial arts, and unlock the very power Frieza feared. If Frieza had just left Planet Vegeta alone, Goku would have grown up as a low-class warrior. He would have been Kakarot. He would have conquered Earth, maybe killed the humans, and stayed at a power level of maybe a few thousand. He never would have learned the Kaioken. He never would have learned gentleness, which is the key trigger for the Super Saiyan transformation, the loss of love. By destroying Bardock, Frieza created Goku. We must also touch upon the lore of Yamoshi. In Battle of Gods, we learn about the original Super Saiyan god, Yamoshi, who died because his power ran out, but his spirit wandered the universe seeking a successor. There is a strong theory in the community that Bardock was, in some way, a conduit for Yamoshi's will. When Bardock stood alone against the Frieza force, he was tapping into that ancient Saiyan instinct, the desire to protect, not just to conquer. In the Dragon Ball Super manga, during the fight with Gas, we see a flashback of Bardock fighting Gas years ago. Bardock wins not because he is stronger, but because he evolves mid-battle. His power level spikes as he fights to protect Granola and Monado. This confirms that Bardock had already broken his limiter. He was on the path to becoming a Super Saiyan. If he had survived the supernova, if he had landed on a planet where he could heal and train, there is no doubt Bardock would have achieved the golden form. Frieza sensed this potential. He didn't have a scouter that could read potential, but his instincts screamed at him. The nightmare wasn't a dream. It was his survival instinct telling him that this specific bloodline, the Bardock line, was dangerous. So let's revisit the title of this video. The true reason Frieza feared Bardock. It wasn't because Bardock could punch a hole in a planet. It wasn't because Bardock was going to lead an army. It was because Bardock represented the one thing a tyrant cannot fight: hope. When you strip away the Kai blasts and the transformations, Dragon Ball is a story about breaking limits. Frieza represents the ceiling. He is the oppressor who says, "You are born here and you will die here. You cannot change." Bardock represents the break. He is the low-class warrior who says, "I decide my own fate." Frieza looked into the future and saw his own defeat. He tried to blow it up. He tried to erase it from history. But as the dust settled on the empty space where Planet Vegeta used to be, Frieza probably felt a cold chill down his spine. He knew he missed one. He didn't know his name. He didn't know where he was. But the nightmare wasn't over. It was just beginning. And 20 years later, as Frieza lay cut in half on a dying Namek, looking up at the Golden Warrior standing over him, I guarantee you he saw the shadow of Bardock standing right behind Goku. The curse of the Kanassans was fulfilled. Bardock saw his death and accepted it. Frieza saw his death and tried to run from it, and in the end they both met the same destiny. What do you think? Was Frieza's fear purely instinctual, or do you think he had an actual oracle warn him about Bardock specifically? And the big question: if Bardock had survived, would he have been a better rival for Frieza than Goku? Let me know in the comments below. We read every single theory you guys post. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the psychology of the Saiyans, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We are uploading daily, uncovering the darkest secrets of the Dragon Ball universe. I'll see you tomorrow.